Hey, my name is Kevin Skowronski. I was a student at Wayland High School from 2009 to 2013, and I'm here to talk to you a little bit about my experiences at Waycam and with Mr. Mullane, Jim. So back to 2009. That's when I first started at Wayland High School, my freshman year. And I remember my teacher, my homeroom teacher, telling me that the elective I had signed up for back in middle school, I honestly don't even remember what it was, got canceled because not enough people signed up. So she gave me a list of 4 or 5 other options that I could choose for my elective, and all of them sounded terrible except for one: TV production. I had no idea what to expect. I had no idea what it was going to be like. I didn't know if we would be watching TV, if we would be making TVs, if we would just be filming. Like, I have no idea. But it sounded the most interesting out of all the options, so I chose it. I went to Waycam for the first day of class, and I met Mr. Mullane, and immediately I was hooked. Um, Jim Mullane is one of the greatest teachers, period. I don't think that can be understated. Going to high school can be scary for any student, um, especially nowadays with things like mental health issues, medication, global crises that are happening that students have just as much access to the news of as we do. It can be very overwhelming for these young people. And especially when you go to a new school where you don't know how things work per se, you don't know any of the teachers, you're not familiar with the environment, you don't really know the upperclassmen, it can be extremely overwhelming and scary. And Jim Mullane is a teacher who recognizes that, number one, and number two, finds a way to help his students overcome that fear, that anxiety that comes with starting with a new school. So I remember my first day at Waycam. I still remember it. We walked in, we met Mr. Mullane, and immediately I got a sense that this guy was a little different. Just from the way he was talking to us, communicating with us, having real conversations with us, laughing with us, making us feel like we actually had something valuable to contribute to the conversation, as opposed to just what was the answer to number 6. And that kind of teaching mentality, that teaching philosophy, has stuck with me ever since. I had a lot of great teachers at Wayland. A lot. And Wayland is a very, very lucky district to have the kind of teachers and the kind of opportunities that it provides its students. But I have to say that Jim Mullane is a tier above. His ability to read students, to know when something is going well, when something is going wrong, and to be able to say, let's talk about this and figure out how we can get past it, figure out how we can improve, figure out what we can do best to move forward. It's something that even adults, most adults don't have the ability to do with other adults. So the fact that he's able to do this with his students is profound. And I remember, I loved his course so much. From just, if we're talking purely about Jim Mullane right now, from the perspective of him being the teacher, I would take any course he teaches. So I continued working with him. I took TV production too. I did so much extra work with Waycam outside of school hours, things like Wayland Weekly, Sports Update, all these things. And it was so much fun. It wasn't work. It wasn't like, oh, I'm earning my community service hours. It was fun. It was like I was doing something that I wanted to do, and I was working with people I wanted to work with, and I had a mentor who actually cared about seeing me succeed. And so when 2011, 2011, when Honors Script to Screen was officially announced as a course, I jumped right on it. Come on, I'd already taken TV production 1 and 2. I would die to take another course with Jim Mullane. So I hopped right on it. And I can honestly tell you that writing a script having it judged by my peers and my teachers, having my script chosen to be made into a film, directing the film, editing the film, also starring in the film just a little bit, all of this in less than 9 months for a student who's 15, 16 years old, that's an achievement. A normal teacher would not work as hard as Jim Mullane did to put together a course like that so that their students could get real-world experience when it comes to filmmaking. And he deserves so much props for that. I just can't can't understate how much of an impact that course has had on me. I still think back to all the days I would spend after school in the editing studio trying to get those final touches together before the film festival in May. And I mean, the friendships that I made, I still keep in touch with all the people who I worked on my film with. Like, it's a bond. It's a community bond. And all of it was started by Jim Mullane. It can't be understated how much of at the core of all of this, beating heart is Jim Mullane. And he is one of the greatest teachers, period. There's nothing more to say there. His teaching style and just the kind of person he is, just a good person, impacted me in such a way that when I went to college, I knew I wanted to pursue education or academia at some level. I wasn't really sure what, and I didn't really know what subject, but I knew I wanted to find a way to pass on these teachings to a future generation, just like how Jim Mullane passed them on to me. So I studied education. I was choosing between 3 different majors: math, physics, and Latin. And it was really the people in the physics department that made me choose physics. In the same way that it really was Jim Mullane who got me interested in TV production, script to screen, film, cinematography, everything. So the major that I chose in college was based on the fact that the teachers who I had in high school were so good at what they did that when I found a similar niche in college with my professors, I wanted to go there right away. And after I graduated from college, I didn't know what I was going to do, so I decided to apply for a PhD program in physics because I knew I wanted to continue working in academia. I knew I wanted to find a way to work with kids, teaching somehow. I didn't know at what level, though. And so I knew that if I went with the PhD program, I could keep all doors open. And now this makes me go back to something that Mr. Mullane taught me my freshman year in TV production. Something simple, very small lesson that might not stick with most people, but for some reason it stuck with me. I remember I was trying to charge up one of the cameras. I was using the cord that I thought I could be using, and I told Mr. Mullane, I was like, "Mr. Mullane, it's not working. Why isn't it working?" And he said, "You know, Kevin, if it doesn't fit, don't jam it. That's the number one thing I can say. Even if you know it's the right cord, if it doesn't fit, don't jam it." Now, this is just a little thing that goes with the technicalities of filmmaking and really anything else. But you can also apply it on a larger philosophical scale. So I was working on my PhD program for 2.5 years, at which point I kind of realized it wasn't for me. And as much as I tried to fit it in there, it wasn't working. So I followed Jim Mullane's philosophy, said I can't jam it, I can't force it in there. So what I'm going to do is find a different avenue. So I earned my master's degree, and I found a job teaching at Waltham High School, where I am now a physics teacher for freshman students. So the tables have come full circle. I am now teaching, and I try to instill the same philosophy in my students that Jim Mullane instills in his and instilled in me. We try to have real conversations to get to the actual core of the problem that the students are facing. We don't just try to put a Band-Aid on the surface. And every day I really do try to emulate the teaching style of Jim Mullane, because I know the positive impact that it had on me, as well as many of my friends and many of the other students who took classes with him, and I know that it works. So that's the kind of teaching style that I try to emulate every day with my own students. And that's saying something. That I still think back to my teacher from freshman year and from junior year of high school who taught me TV production. He didn't teach me physics. He didn't even teach me math, which I guess you could say could overlap a little. He taught me TV production. And still I'm able to use his teaching style, his methodologies in my own approach with my students today. I don't think there's any other way to put it. Jim Mullane is one of the greatest teachers, period. Wayland is so lucky to have him. And furthermore, Waycam is so lucky to have him. You guys have no idea how lucky you are. Jim Mullane is the beating heart of Waycam. Without him, Waycam, honestly, there is no Waycam. I mean, you can pump money into it, whatever you want to do, but without Jim Mullane, there's no Waycam. He makes it. He is the face behind it. He's the beating heart, the soul. He's the person that people go to when they have questions. He's the person who represents the company. He's the person who teaches the students. He is the man, the myth, the legend himself, Jim Mullane. And in all honesty, he should be praised for his work. I still keep in touch with my friends from TV production and from script to screen. And I've actually made new friends based purely on the fact that we share such a passion for film. Something that I don't think I could have ever said I would have done if it wasn't for Mr. Mullane, is I was able to meet my own personal hero last year. So I've grown to love film. I have an incredible passion for film. And just last year, I was able to go to California, Los Angeles, to visit one of my favorite directors, Zack Snyder. So I got his signature on one of my favorite movies of all time. His wife, who's an executive producer, Larry Fong, principal cinematographer. All of these things I got to achieve because of my passion for film, which all rooted from my experiences at Waycam with Jim Mullane. Now, you could argue that, well, if I didn't take a course with Jim Mullane, I would have different passions. And maybe that's true. But I can honestly say that I'm happy with what I have now. I'm happy with what I achieved by working with Jim Mullane. I am so proud of what I achieved by working with Jim Mullane. And I continue to use what I learned from him and what I learned from Waycam in my everyday life, both as a teacher, as a filmmaker, independent filmmaker, obviously, and just as a human being, trying to be like a nice person. So I can tell you that even though I don't aggressively pursue it, right now, me and a couple of my friends from Wayland High School are working on making some short films just in our spare time for the fun of it. And we always hark back to, well, what would Mr. Mullane do in this situation? And even with my friends who never took TV production, they didn't get a chance to meet Mr. Mullane in high school. They still know who he is because of the name drops and the mentions that he gets from me, from my other friends who took honors script to screen. And it's kind of cool. He's literally a legend among our friends because we all have this passion now for just filmmaking, whatever it could be, whether it's one of my friends right now, we're working on a film about his car, just a short film about his car. It's going to be less than 3 minutes long, but I mean, come on, like, this is something that we like to do. It's fun. It's like something that we do in our spare time, and it all comes back to Waycam and Jim Mullane and the experiences that we had when we were high school students. And I just think that without the experiences that I had at Waycam and without the interactions and the courses I took with Jim Mullane, I don't know where I would be right now. But I can honestly say that right now I am happy, and it all stems from Jim Mullane and from WHM. So I hope that this video has been helpful in informing you that WHM is absolutely something that should be continued at Wayland. It's absolutely something that should be expanded upon. I think we should be giving more students the opportunity for this kind of real world learning, because this is what universities are looking for nowadays. This is what employers are looking for nowadays. They don't want to see that students, I mean, yeah, it's great if you get an A in math, science, history, and English all 4 years in a row. But when you have these real world applicable experiences like honors script to screen, that's huge. That makes a huge difference in where you can go in the future. And if these students who are going to get these doors opened up to them through taking honors script to screen, if they have all these new opportunities, I want to make sure that these people also get the chance to learn from Jim Mullane and have his philosophies rub off on them a little, so that when they go into all of these open doors that they have the ability to choose from, they are also good people going through those doors. And they will improve not only the lives of those around them, but also the lives of those who view their work. And if we can do that, then each one of us can make the world a little bit of a better place. As cliche or ironic as it sounds, whatever you want to call it, we can do it. You have the strength to do it, honestly, right now. And it starts with something as small as a film studio at Wayland High School. So I ask that you please, 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 please help to continue giving students this amazing opportunity, not only to work in a film studio as high school students, but also to get the chance to work with Jim Mullane, because he's just a great guy and one of the greatest teachers of all times, and he deserves the recognition for what he's achieved and for what he's built. Thank you.